All right, welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Rise News channel. With me is Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. Great to have you, Prof. So we're going to go straight to you, about the stories, we talked about initially. And we'll pretty much start with, the very first one, which is about the protest. Finally, things have wrapped up over the protest. And there was supposed to be a massive 1 million man march yesterday in Abuja, but it didn't hold. Some segments of society says the government has not learned anything from the protest. What's your take on all of this?
Well, the 1 million man march didn't hold, but before then, in the course of the 10 days, we had protests across the country, in Lagos, in Abuja itself, in Port Harcourt, and most intensely in the north, Kano, Katsina, where things turned violent. Tragically, some people died, and that is a very sad part of the whole thing. If people hadn't died, I would have said the protest was good, and it was a win-win thing, because the protesters have made their voices heard, and even though it was not Nigerians that came out, the protests expressed the feelings of Nigerians. The hardship, the hunger in the land, the poverty across the country, which the government seemed to be oblivious of or not concerned about, considering the way the government has carried on in the past a little over a year or so. The problems have been there, and people appreciate the fact that the problems are extensive, the problems are daunting. But the way the government has responded to it and the effects of government policy made people to come to the conclusion that the government hasn't behaved in a way to suggest that it appreciates the enormity of the problem. For instance, we've said this over and over again, what I would refer to as the prodigality of the government, be it executive, be it legislature, didn't make people believe that the government is sincere when it says that things are tight and the Nigerians should tighten their belt. Where do we start from? Do we start from the 21 billion naira renovation of the Vice President's lodge? How should that be the priority of government with the kind of economy the government inherited and the need to quickly do something? Or is it the cars for legislators, 160 million for each person at a time like this? Or is it the presidential jet, $100 million thereabouts, at the figure, or even maybe even higher? These are not things that one would have expected to be the priority of government in this economic condition that is in dire straits. It is these things that angered people. In fact, some people say that it is just that Nigerians are, accommodating and resilient and understanding. Otherwise, elsewhere, what we'll have been talking about will be a revolution. But, the protest has expressed the feeling of Nigerians. And I will hope that the message has been passed. If I were the president, these are things I would do. First, all of this expense, I will suspend the presidential jet thing. That money, if it goes to agriculture, health, education, it will do a whole lot. I will fly my private jet to convince Nigerians that I'm not interested in just enjoying the office, but wanting to serve. I will give up a whole lot of things. The ministers, all government officials will make one sacrifice or the other. Already mistakes have been made. Like I stated last week, the president in his speech.
Is he allowed to fly? You said you fly is he allowed to fly his private jet?
Well, when it was discovered that one of the jets in the fleet, I understand he had 10, had faults and he couldn't fly with. It was the private jet that flew him to, was it the inauguration of Kagame? Yeah, in Rwanda.
No, that was today. The inauguration was today.
Was it Kagame? He flew out of the country with, it was rumored that it was a Chaguri, some private jet somewhere. This thing can always be, once those who ensure the safety of the presidential jet are transferred to whatever other arrangements that are. After all, elsewhere, in the UK, elsewhere, prime ministers, they fly commercial, and heavens don't fall, and they are secure. I had a chance meeting with Joe Biden. Was it 2009 or 2010? He was riding on the train from Delaware. He was going to Washington, D.C., vice president of that country. It is here we make so much of, how big the office is and how far away from the people the officials, should be, and how high the pedestal of adulation they should occupy. Elsewhere, it's just...
They're supposed to be our servants. They're supposed to be there to serve us.
Of course, we know that is not the case.
But that's not the case. Yeah. Let me quickly go to the issue of flags, foreign flags being flown during the protest. What's your read on that?
Yeah, the flag is a very concerning thing. Very concerning because the flag symbolizes something, an identity of something. And from those who were flying the flags and the things they were saying, it was obvious that they were calling for a coup, and they were, like inviting Russia to come and support whoever would help to, ensure that coup takes place. The second thing is that those who were flying the flag didn't know anything about the flag they were flying. If you ask them which country owns this flag, they'll probably not be able to mention Russia.
Do you have facts to that effect?
Yeah. So,
do you have facts to that effect? So why were they flying the Russian flag?
Well, somebody was sponsoring.
Why were they not flying the Union Jack?
Because the Britain, in West Africa in recent times, we have had coups. Yeah. Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. And Russia has been the country supporting these countries. And I say this because those who were protesting, they went to some, in Katsina, in Kano, they went to, the emir's place in Zamfara, and they were talking about coup. They were talking about, we want the military. So it was not just a case of flying the flag. There was something that accompanied the flag, which they said, not that they were quoted as saying. We heard what they spoke in Hausa, some spoke in Fufude, and we understand these languages. It is very concerning because to think that some people are interested in coup again in Nigeria is very concerning. And usually, most of the time, these are people who have lost out, who were looking for appointment, didn't get one, who are falling out and all that, who want some change of government, or maybe people who are corrupt, who are facing FCC, who think the change of government would make their sins to be forgiven, something like that. But it is very concerning because, Nigeria coup, when the military were in government, what did they do? And I've challenged people to answer me the question that we had dozens of military rulers across Africa from the 63 to the 80s, and of course, even in the 80s, we still had some military rulers in place. How many of them can we really say transform their countries the way they promised? If you remove Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, maybe Murtala Mohammed in Nigeria, maybe one or two others. All the rest just did the same thing that the civilians they overthrew even did worse. And of course, in addition to doing worse than the civilians, of course, we know what the military stands for. You don't have the rule of law being followed. You don't have freedom of speech. You don't have rights being protected. So rather than talk about coup and the military, what Nigerians should be concerned with is how to assist government to be able to, contribute to the country's sustainable development and not calling for coups. It's a tragedy that we have people who, because some of those guys you saw couldn't even afford a flag.
Yeah, obviously.
You saw how they look. They couldn't afford a flag.
They've arrested
so somebody did the flags and gave to them. Even the tailor may not even be the main person. The tailor will just wake up one morning and say, oh, I want to start doing nice to do flag. Somebody must have also hired the tailor.
They could give them the contract.
And all that. So it's concerning. It's something that I deprecate in its strongest term.
Okay, the information minister and his team were at the Arise News headquarters, and there were a lot of conversations in the course of the week. And Arise News chairman, President Dr. Obayigbana, had some very stern words by saying that two policy decisions, that's the floating of the Naira, removal of subsidy, really affected the lots of Nigerians. I mean, what's your take as regards this?
Yeah, I agree entirely with Dr. Boniface Chizia, his submission on the matter. that it was a mistake. It was a mistake. And, we've said this over and over again that something as sensitive as fuel subsidy and the impact it has on all facets of Nigerian life is not something you just wake up one day without plan, without putting in place a whole lot of things and you just say, oh, it's gone. The subsidy is a bad thing, but the remover, there will have been structures put in place before the removal, and not just once. My thinking is that it's something that should take place gradually over time. The PDP had, they had a schema along that line that, you'll be removing the thing gradually so that it will not cause dysfunction in the economy. So that was a mistake. And the floating too, there are conditions that must exist before you do floating, not just on the spur of the moment. But of course, we can now see the attempt to reverse those policies is a confirmation of the point you've made all along, that it was a mistake. But like I've always said, this government has one advantage, and I like the president for that. The ability to admit mistakes and then make a retraction. Not insisting that, oh, this is what I want to do and I must do it, even when you can see that it's not working. So that we may not get there as fast as we will have if the right decisions that policy have put in place from the outset, but we'll get there eventually. If the right things are not done, we'll gradually begin to now improve. It may not be dramatic, it may not be revolutionary, it may just be evolutionary, but things will begin to improve when the right things are not done. And moving forward, as I've always advocated, there has to be philosophy. There has to be, clear thinking.
You think this administration has clear thinking?
Well, up to now, not as vast as one would expect.
What do you mean, not as vast as what?
There are a few policies that have been the right thing to do. Many have not been. So that's why I don't want to speak in absolute terms that they have no right thinking, no philosophy. A whole lot of what has been done has not been what one expects. Has not followed critical analysis and then the adoption of the right course of action. But on a few other issues, yes, it has been. But like I said, the government has this advantage of identifying what has not been done correctly and attempting to correct it. And that is what I recommend, that in the aftermath of the protest, a whole lot needs to change. The things that ought to have been done before, the president in his address talked about agricultural implements and those, how many million hectares that are to be cultivated.
10 million.
Yes, 10 million hectares, and that the implements are coming from Belarus, they are coming from Brazil. I mean, just look at it. Why would you spend 21 billion to renovate the vice president lodge and all these things like presidential jets be things that will be done first before agriculture? If those things have been done the first, second month of the president's coming in, by now food will be everywhere. So you see the point I'm making. Apart from the policies, some not being well thought out, prioritizing is also a problem. They seem to have just prioritized what will give them comfort first. And now we are in the second year. And we know how these things, before you do see Jack Robinson, we'll be in the third year, and the election will just be around the corner. Yes.
And just some fun factors, even with regards to the fact that we're going to Belarus to buy tractors and harvesters and things like that. There used to be a company called Steyr here, that was formed many years ago in Bauchi State, that actually was said to be the responsibility of providing tractors. Federal government had some shares in it. That company went moribund. So the fact that we used to make tractors locally and we are going to buy from abroad, we used to assemble tractors locally and we're going to buy from abroad, is now a sad indictment. I think Steyr folded up around 08, 09, around the late 2000s. And that's a sad indication of the kind of country we are in as we speak today. So let's quickly go to the issue of this Igbophobia that keeps coming up over and over again. The NASS, Caucus team has said to the IGP that you should investigate, and they've written the petition over all of this. Well,
I'm a street person, so I gather information from diverse sources. There are many people that don't like Igbo people.
You know some of them?
Of course. I mean,
really?
I know some of them.
Have you engaged some of them?
Well, they are all around, and they say...
What are their reasons?
Well, many of them think that the Igbo are over-assertive. Some of them think that They are generally not honest. As if you do business with them, you likely regret. There are a lot of things they talk about. But I don't agree with Dr. Boniface Chizia that Igbophobia developed in the aftermath of the last election. It has always been there. It probably became, it expanded in the aftermath of the election. But if I'm to link that to the election, there is a point I want to make, and that is that nobody should have the illusion that Obi's victory in Lagos was made possible only by the Igbo votes. Many Yoruba people, mostly elites, those who wanted genuine change and who thought that after assessing the candidates, Obi, who occupied the top of the scale, voted for him. We saw that across Lekki, all over the place. So Obi's victory in Lagos was not just the Igbo alone. There were many Yoruba who voted, Obi. And the other side to it is this: in the governorship election, in between those weeks, between the presidential and the governorship election, unfortunately, the Igbo too, many of them made mistakes by overemphasizing the ethnic factor in the Obi. The progress will be made in that election. And the people I spoke with, many of who voted will be in the presidential, said they would never vote Jandor. Sorry, that's Jandor. Never vote, what's this candidate now?
Rhodes Vival.
Yeah, no,
Rhodes Vival.
Yes, Vival. And they would never vote him. Because it seemed that the whole thing was being seen as an Igbo thing. And the guy that went to Aromire in Ikeja was trying to hoist the Biafran flag, and so we have conquered Lagos. The governorship will be out. Those are comments that will normally put people off. And
so you say it's both parts?
It's both, yes, it's both parts.
So they have their own blame?
Yes, they do. And even among the Igbo themselves, it's not one monolithic this thing. You have the Imo, the Owerri, those in Abia. They also have the differences even within them as well. And
so generally, why do you think this perception grows?
Well, unfortunately...
And why do you think people are not welcoming across board? Because when you look at it, every tribe, all the things you say for Igbo people, you can also say for Hausas and Yorubas and any tribe in this country. But I like to narrow the conversation down by not generalizing. I say to people, because you've met an individual, it's not a general spec of a tribe. So when people say they are over-assertive and everything, I've met Yoruba people that are equally over-assertive.
Exactly.
I've met Hausa people that are equally over-assertive.
Exactly.
I've met Igbo people that are equally over-assertive. So you cannot just say because one person has an interaction with one person, then you make the mistake of a fallacy of hasty generalization.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to inquire, what did you even tell them? What did you engage with them when these people said these things?
Well, what I discover is that...
because just how they said of the Jews back in the days, and the only undoing of the Jews was because they were successful in business. And you had Reverend Fathers, the likes of Father Coughlin, back in the days in America, saying to them that, the Jewish bankers. Till today. So when you're making fallacies of hasty generalization, can't it be on a case-by-case basis rather than a generalization across board?
Yeah, it is more of a psychological thing and false assumption. For a long time, this statement, Urubuwayo, was very prominent.
Which is also very false.
Yes, and, I'm not sure it has totally cleared. That statement, Urubuwayo, made people to think that the average Yoruba was cunning, was a Wayo person, so to speak. But that has, almost totally cleared now. I think that is the case with the Igbo. It's a psychological thing. It's not something that is based on reality. It is psychological. It is an assumption that is not correct. Unfortunately, it has not disappeared.
So when people peddle assumptions like that did you engage them?
Of course. I've even written about it. I have an essay on ethnic relations in Lagos. And this is one of the things I addressed there. Engaging some of the most honest people I've met are Igbo. There's a lady she's late now, unfortunately. In fact, anything that can be, you can link anything that is not correct, right, with it, she will not use, she's not interested. And I've met a couple of others like that over time. So it's a psychological thing, false assumption, which unfortunately has not disappeared. Which is why, when people are saying, the 2023 election will be, since he did so well in the last election, the next one, he will just clear the place, I just laugh. That perception, in fact, in the last election, if Atiku had not been there, and it had been just Obi and now President Tinubu, the gap between President Tinubu and Obi would have been so wide. He would have defeated Obi with a very wide margin because of the North. Many of those who voted Atiku would never have voted Obi. They would have voted.
Do you have your facts, or those are just
yes? In fact, one of the things we engaged Obi here, that's His Excellency Obi here, when he came on our program here. You see, they were in many parts of the North. They just couldn't just accept Obi. I want to understand. I want to explain that on the basis of maybe the same Igbophobia. As I told you, I'm a grassroots person. We go around, we find out how people are not. And one of the things we were asking Obi when he came here at that time was that he came here on the 5th of February. Election was 25th, 20 days to election. 2 weeks before he came, many members of the Labour Party had left. They came to APC in Zamfara, including the coordinator. 3 days before he came here, Bauchi, the coordinator, had come to PDP with almost everybody. And when you engage them one-on-one, even the ones in Lagos, when you engage them one-on-one, they say that if it is a choice between Igbo, they were not even seeing Obi as or his competence or whatever. If it's between Igbo and Yoruba, they are more comfortable with the Yoruba man than the Igbo man. Of course, if an Hausa or...
Is that not the problem with Nigeria?
It's a problem. And so in the next election...
It's not about competence, but it's about the tribe you're comfortable with.
Yes, ethnicity is a huge... and of course, even the Igbo too are not free of that. Didn't you see the figures for Obi in the East? In fact, he scored higher than any of the other candidates in the area. So ethnicity is a major problem as far as democracy, elections in Nigeria is concerned. And this must be addressed to a large degree before the best can begin to emerge as leaders in this country.
Let's talk about this 1.5 billion Serap is saying we should all look at and probe. How is it that when we take these loans, we just fritter the money away? We don't use it to do anything.
That is, again, it speaks to the Nigerian environment and the Nigerian condition. I also agree entirely with Dr. Boniface Chizia in his submission that when you borrow and it's for capital projects and what you are borrowed for would pay back, the loan, it makes sense. But when you borrow for consumption, it's a problem. Unfortunately, in fact, if you ask me, I would say, let us manage what we have. Okay. Let us put a freeze on all these loans for now. Okay. Because the money is just, squandered. And then generations unborn are left to come and pay what they know nothing about. Okay. We should adopt.
Okay. I just want to really have a pause because this is part of the issue we're going to talk about. We want to go to Aaron and probably ask him why Nigeria never came back with any medal. Team Nigeria on Saturday ended participation at the 2024 Olympics with 0 medals. Nigeria's participation came to an end after Hannah Ruben lost her women's 76K freestyle wrestling 5-2 to Mongolia and Kate Ahmad Dasadnavan. In the round of 16, Team Nigeria has 88 athletes across 12 sports and could not secure any medal. The outing was the country's worst Olympic performance since London 2012. This will be the 8th time Nigeria has returned from the Olympic without medals. Some of the country's biggest hopeful failed. A world record holder. Likewise, Ese Brume finished 5th in the women's long jump. Aaron, the minister, Aaron Akirjola, our correspondent, is still in Paris, is covering the game. Hello, Aaron.
What's happening?
Hi, Aaron.
Hello? Yes, doctor, how are you doing today, sir?
Good, Aaron. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Yes, I can hear you.
Aaron, we are not coming back with any medal.
Yes.
And the minister has written an epistle on his page. I don't know if you've seen that epistle. What's going on?
It's unfortunate. This has been a very, very bad and subpar outing for Team Nigeria. 88 athletes came for the Paris 2024 Olympics, and we were expecting 2-3 medals or try to build on at least what we actually posted when it came to the Tokyo 2020 games. But it is a massive regression from what happened at the Tokyo Games. And the minister, before we went to this Olympics, said he wanted to surpass what happened in Atlanta '96, which remains one of our best outings in the history of Nigeria's Olympic foray or venture. So hence the lengthy explanation, because it's been misstep after misstep, it's been error after error, it's been mediocrity after mediocrity.
Aaron, so I don't know, would you like to react to what the minister wrote? What were some of his concerns?
I didn't get that.
I said you would like to react to what people are saying the minister is saying. What are some of his concerns, and who is going to bite the bullet for this?
Ultimately, he has to bite the bullet because he's the man in charge of sports in Nigeria. And if Nigeria is represented at a global meet of this magnitude and Nigeria fails to show up, he will be the one to answer for our misgiving and our poor performance. The truth is, that's the truth. If people blame him, they say on easy lies the head that wears the crown. And according to John Maxwell, everything rises and falls on leaders, because if Nigeria had succeeded, he would have taken the plaudits. So if Nigeria fails, he should bite the bullet. But the unfortunate thing is, whatever happens in Nigeria in terms of our outing is systemic more than any other thing. I've tried to explain it, that it's unfortunate that this man has just spent a year in office as the Minister of Sports Development. Before he came into power, or before he was being given that official portfolio, what was his antecedent in sports? It's the big question. The nation is a joke, because if you bring a nobody, or if you bring a clueless person and you stick him in a very, very technical sector like sports that needs technocrats, that needs the know-how, that needs the understanding of the bigger picture, and you expect the man to do miracles? If we expect anything other than what we got.
So are you saying the minister is clueless? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying the authorities are clueless? Some people have been calling for a return of, this name will sound interesting to you, Dan Ungerem, former AFN boss.
Yes, Dan Ungerem is a man that has skin in the game. Dan Ungerem is a man that knows the sport. Dan Ungerem, when he left the AFN, did not abandon sports. Dan Ungerem still has his hands dipped into different pies that concern sports. He's still in the know of what is happening. But the question is this: most people that find themselves within the corridors of power in sports, I will not say clueless, because it might sound like probably you're hauling insults at these people, but you cannot blame them. They do not have they have the shallowest of understanding of how sports works. And when you come to an Olympics whereby people are perfecting the art of high performance at the highest level, looking at sports science and how sports and science can drive athletes to do great things, because there been talks about how shoes and the way shoes are being configured has given athletes edges. Come on. What else? What else?
Aaron, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're very sad. Prof, we did foul. Terrible.
When the Olympics came to an end yesterday, and we didn't win any medal, I just remembered the novel by Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. The two cities, incidentally, London and Paris. He begins the novel with a statement. It was the best of times.
The worst of
It was
times.
the worst of times. But we could recast D. Dickens' words to be for Nigeria. It is the worst of times. It is the worst of times. As in London, so in Paris. I agree entirely with what Aaron has said. Those who manage sports in Nigeria, how much of sports do they know? So it builds into the whole thing we've been discussing, in the past 30, 40 minutes or so, how governments should be run. How government, what we have recommended that government should do for the polity, the economy, so too for sports. Professionals must be brought in. They must be given targets. And then we must ask, what we will do in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, measurable targets. That is the only way.
Quick comment. Kamala Harris doing well in the polls. What's your take on that?
It is expected that she will do well, but some people are thinking that it's just a flash in the pan, that, it's the storm before the lull. The election is still a bit far away, but I think she will make a good show in the election. And she stands a decent chance of winning.
Thank you so much. Decent chance. Let's see how that'll pan out. But you've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show on Arise News Channel. I'm Rufai Oseni, and for my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thanks for watching this Sunday.